You know that feeling, right? You wake up and you're just waiting. Waiting for that little spark of inspiration that tells you, yep, today is the day. I'm gonna move mountains today. And hey, on the mornings when that spark actually shows up, you feel like an absolute champion. But on the mornings when it doesn't, you kind of feel like something's broken inside you. Well, I want to kick things off by telling you that absolutely nothing is broken inside you. You've just been chasing the wrong thing your entire life. You've been chasing a feeling. And the hard truth is, feelings are the most unreliable business partner you will ever have.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking a massive paradigm shift here. See, most of us are wired to think success is all about getting motivated, and more importantly, staying motivated. We're always looking for the right speech or that perfect burst of energy. But today, we're completely stepping away from that exhausting cycle of chasing fleeting feelings. Instead, we're going to learn how to engineer a totally reliable system for success. We're talking about building the machine and exactly why you need to stop chasing motivation starting right now.
Okay, so what exactly do we mean when we throw around the word machine? A machine is simply a system of habits, decisions, and environments that produce a specific result automatically, without requiring you to summon up a feeling first. Think about a literal physical factory for a second. A factory doesn't ask itself every morning if it's, in the mood to manufacture products. It doesn't wait to feel inspired. The workers show up, someone hits a switch, the machines turn on, and it just manufactures, because that is exactly what it was built to do. It runs regardless of the weather outside, and much more importantly, regardless of the weather inside your head.
When you compare the daily life of a motivation chaser to a machine builder, it's literally night and day. The motivation chaser is essentially trying to build a permanent structure on a completely temporary foundation. Motivation comes and goes, right? Which means they're constantly at war with themselves, constantly negotiating, and let's be real, losing that battle way more often than they win. But the machine builder, they have peace. They've built a permanent structure. The war is over because the decision was already made in advance. The machine just stands on its own. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, this sounds a bit cold or maybe too mechanical for me, I want you to ask yourself a question. What already runs like a machine in your life right now? Think about brushing your teeth in the morning. You don't stand in front of the mirror and wait for a deep, profound inspiration to floss. You don't ask yourself if you feel motivated to grab the toothpaste. It just happens automatically. It's wired so deeply into the structure of your day that skipping it would actually feel weird. That right there proves you're already capable of being an engineer. You already know how to do this.
Section 1. Building your system.
So we know what a machine is, and we know that you've already got the capacity to build one. But how does this actually get constructed? Well, every reliable machine, no matter what result you're trying to achieve, is made up of three physical components: the trigger, the environment, and the sequence. When you lock these three things together, they completely replace your wavering emotions. Let's break these down one by one, starting with how you spark the whole thing to life.
First up is the trigger. And what's absolutely crucial to grasp here is that a trigger must be a physical event, not a mood. A lot of people use their feelings as a trigger. They wait until they feel like starting. But since feelings are incredibly unreliable, their machine just runs erratically. What you actually need is a concrete, preceding action. For example, maybe your trigger is that you sit down at your desk with a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. That's it. Coffee hits the desk, machine turns on. No debate. Physical events don't have moods, and that takes the on switch completely out of your emotions and places it squarely in reality.
Piece number 2 is the environment, and honestly, this is where most people completely fail without ever knowing why. You've probably been sold this myth that a strong person overcomes any environment through sheer force of will. But the truth? Your environment is way stronger than your willpower. Willpower is not some endless, magical resource. Actually, it's more like a small, leaky battery that usually runs totally dead by noon. If you're relying on willpower to resist distractions or force yourself to focus in a chaotic space, you are going to lose that fight. Everyone does.
So instead of trying to be strong in a weak environment, you've got to make the environment strong so you don't have to be. How? You clear the desk. You ruthlessly remove distractions. You make doing the right thing incredibly easy, and you make doing the wrong thing super hard. If you want to do focused work in the morning, set up the field the night before. Lay out exactly what you need. By doing this, your environment actually does the heavy lifting of keeping you on task, and your tired willpower finally gets a break. You win the battle by ensuring you never actually have to fight it.
The third piece is the sequence. Listen, a machine doesn't spit out a result in one massive, dramatic burst of heroic effort. If you're waiting for that huge surge of energy, you're probably just going to end up doing nothing at all. Instead, a machine runs on small,
ordinary, highly repeatable steps. It is simply about taking one step that leads directly into the second, and then the second seamlessly into the third, all arranged in a reliable order.
It's about writing the first sentence, not the whole book. When you break your work down into a sequence of really small steps, the massive task stops being so intimidating. You don't have to feel motivated to write an entire book today, because you're literally only committing to writing the very first sentence. And let's be honest, writing one single sentence barely requires any motivation at all. But once you do it, it naturally leads to the second, and suddenly, almost by magic, the machine just begins to run on its own.
All right, Section 2, Surviving the Bad Days.
Because look, even the absolute best engineered systems are going to hit a roadblock eventually. Every machine occasionally breaks down. And when that inevitable bad day arrives, you have to rely on the golden rule of the machine builder: never miss twice. See, when a motivation chaser has a bad day, they miss one day, they feel awful about it, and then that guilt turns into missing 2 days, then a week, and then total collapse. But a builder expects the bad days. They have a built-in rule: one miss is totally fine. Life happens, right? But you do absolutely not miss twice in a row, because 2 misses is the start of a pattern, and a pattern is the death of a machine.
So how exactly do you protect that pattern when you feel terrible and want to do nothing? You keep the pilot light lit. On the day when every fiber of your being wants to just quit, you don't have to run the whole machine, you just have to keep it from shutting all the way off. Do a 1-minute version of your habit. If it's a workout, just put your gym clothes on and stretch for 60 seconds. If it's your side hustle, just sit at the desk and touch the work for 2 minutes. You aren't trying to be super productive here. You are just keeping the machine warm so that tomorrow you don't have to rebuild the whole thing from scratch.
Section 3. The Power of Momentum.
If you can just survive those rough days by protecting the pattern, you eventually reach the ultimate reward of this entire system. Think about the story of a young guy with a really strict schedule and compare him to his free spirit friends. His friends only worked when the mood struck, which, let's face it, wasn't very often. And every time they came back to work, they had to start over from zero because their momentum had completely drained away. But the young guy, he just stuck to his schedule. He never stopped, which meant he never had to start over. 10 years down the line, the gap between them was just enormous. And it wasn't a gap in talent. It was the massive compounding result of a machine that had been gaining momentum day after day, year after year.
Section 4. Action creates the feeling. Okay, here it is. This is the absolute core truth you need to take away from this explainer. Motivation is exhaust. It is not fuel. We have all been taught that motivation comes first and action comes second, that you somehow need to feel a certain way before you can start moving. It is completely backwards. Action does not wait for motivation. Action actually creates motivation. You start the machine cold, without feeling any spark at all, and the actual physical process of the machine running generates the motivation you've been desperately searching for. The feeling you want? It actually lives on the other side of starting. So now that we know motivation is just the exhaust that comes out after the engine is already running, let's step out of the philosophy and get highly practical. How do you actually become the builder starting tomorrow morning? What are the exact, literal steps you need to take before your head hits the pillow tonight?
Here is your concrete construction plan. Step 1, pick one machine. Literally just one. Don't go crazy and try to build 10 new habits at once, or you're going to instantly drain that willpower we're trying so hard to conserve. Second, attach it to a reliable trigger, a specific time or a preceding physical action. Third, clear the path. Rearrange your environment to make it incredibly easy to start. Fourth, shrink the very first step down so small that you could easily do it on your absolute worst day. And finally, promise yourself right now that you will never ever miss twice. Protect the pattern at all costs.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most powerful thought. Stop waiting for the spark, start turning the key. The people you look up to, the ones out there actually accomplishing the dreams you have, they aren't somehow more inspired than you are. They just stopped waiting for the feeling and they built a machine that frankly doesn't need it. And you can build that exact same machine starting tomorrow morning. So instead of waiting for motivation to finally strike, I want to leave you with this. What is the very first machine you're going to build tomorrow?